Hello, fellow scholars. Welcome back to the Ripe Good Scholar YouTube channel. My name is Sarah. Today, we're finishing up our series on A Midsummer Night's Dream. For this video, I'm assuming that you are familiar with the play. If you've watched the series so far, that should be the case. If not, links down below to all the previous videos. Check it out, and we'll see you back when you're schooled on Midsummer. Now that we've reached the end of A Midsummer Night's Dream, we should ask ourselves a crucial question. Was it all a dream? The main human characters would certainly say yes, but that was the point of the final magic Oberon used, wasn't it? The answer is ambivalent to the audience, and that's what I want to explore today. If the answer is yes, it was a dream, then we have Shakespeare pulling what amounts to a 16th century bad TV show twist. It does have much different implications for the characters, though. If the answer is no, it was not a dream, then we have something totally different to consider. What are the implications of fairies being real? What does this say about Demetrius' love for Helena? And what about that little Indian boy? One of the wonderful things about this play is that there are so many different ways to interpret it. This is a story with many different angles, and each one can lead to many different trains of thought. I, of course, have my opinions, but I would love to hear what you think in the comments down below. Let's start first with the premise that everything which occurred in the woods was a dream. Now, to buy into this premise, we have to accept that this was a collective dream, that all the Athenian lovers had a dream with the exact same events. At first, this may seem impossible, but to be honest, it's not the biggest logical leap Shakespeare has asked his audience to make. For that, we need only look to A Comedy of Errors. If you're unfamiliar with that play, check out my podcast episode all about it. This is one of Shakespeare's more fantastical plays. Several of his plays contain supernatural elements, but most do not have a direct influence on the plot. The witches in Macbeth have a more ambivalent role as fortune tellers. Also, the witches were a part of Holinshed's Chronicle, the actual historical source Shakespeare used. Then, there are ghosts, which show up more as messengers in several other plays. The Tempest would be the only other play in which magic functions so crucially and openly to the plot. The Fairies make this play so fantastical that assuming it was all a dream is not unbelievable. So, now that we have established that it could have been a dream, what does that mean for our cast of characters? First of all, it undoes a lot of the hurt feelings that occurred, particularly between Hermia and Helena. The emotions may feel real, but there's comfort in it not being real. It's kind of like if you have a dream fight with someone and wake up mad, but then get over it because nothing really happened. If this was all a dream, Helena was not really tormented by those closest to her. Hermia did not really suffer through Lysander hating her. The two women did not fight and viciously insult each other. Everything that happened could be chalked up to their subconsciouses working through a variety of suppressed fear and weird issues. Now, I suppose a dream would mean that Demetrius just suddenly realized in his sleep that he in fact does love Helena. Honestly, though, it being a dream makes me think a little bit higher of Helena. Hear me out. She spent the whole night thinking she was being cruelly tormented by all of her friends. None of that was resolved until they woke up from the dream. If it was a dream, she can at least shrug it all off as a weird dream. If it wasn't, she believes that her love and her friends tormented her all night and then just wakes up and forgives them. At least this way she's just accepting Demetrius' base level of jerkiness like she always did. Now, Bottom, I suppose, just had a nice dream where he was doted on by fairies. However, that does mean his friends just abandoned him sleeping in the woods, which... not cool. The fairies do throw a wrench into the whole dream theory because no one has a dream with that detailed of a subplot. They served to explain the flower love magic, but the feud isn't necessary. It could easily have just been fairies causing mischief because they could. But instead, their dream has this whole intricate subplot. You also have to wonder when exactly everyone fell asleep, because we never see Helena sleep until all the flower shenanigans have already taken place. Bottom line, if it's a dream, it's a super weird one. But dreams are often super weird. Now let's consider the implications of it not being a dream. The obvious implication is that fairies and magic fully exist. They exist and can actively influence the mortal world. They can control human behavior and emotion. This fact has major implications on the people of this world. It calls into question nearly every emotion, intent, and experience. It calls into question whether or not there is actually free will. The mortals are completely at the mercy of the fairies' whims. They could have chosen not to return Lysander's love, or Bottom's head. They could not have interfered at all. It's all up to the fairies, and mortal will becomes irrelevant, which is pretty frightening when you really think about it. Plus, most people appear not to believe in fairies, so fairy magic is not assumed. That makes it even more insidious. Good thing the fairies don't seem to want to inflict any real harm. And if we're talking about choice, we have to talk about Demetrius. Demetrius makes it very clear at the start of the play that he no longer loves Helena. He doesn't want her around him. He won't go back to her. He wants nothing to do with her. He's all about Hermia now. Then he gets charmed by the fairies, and he's desperately in love with Helena again. His affection shifts so suddenly that Helena assumes it must be some sort of cruel joke. She refuses to believe his proclamations of love, or even his compliments. That is how outrageous it is that he would even be nice to her, let alone love her. The magic appears to take away all his previous intent. It overrides the choice he made. This is where things get a little uncomfortable. Demetrius is still under a spell at the end of the play. So does he truly love Helena? We assume as much because he loved her at one time, but we don't know exactly what happened between the two of them. It's worth considering that Demetrius had a good reason for not wanting to stay with Helena. But even if he didn't, it's still his choice. Well, it was his choice. His choice is gone. His consent is gone. He is unknowingly forced into a marriage with Helena. That should make us just a tad uncomfortable. Demetrius may be a butthead, but he still deserves bodily autonomy. Just saying. We also have to consider the Indian child that Titania and Oberon are fighting over. All we know about him is that he is an orphan living in fairyland. His mother was a priestess of Titania, but in the end, Oberon has him. I have no big point to make with this. I just have to wonder what happened to him. What's his story? What does his future look like? Oberon and Titania, frankly, don't seem like great caretakers. So I worry about the little guy. Assuming the dream is real is more cut and dry. There's less speculating about what really happened. However, it leads to much broader implications for the world that are fun to explore, and I would encourage you to do just that. One of my favorite things to do with Shakespeare is dive deeper into the text in interesting ways. To ask myself, why is this play still so beloved today? And I think there are a couple of reasons. The emotions that make up the human condition have not really changed in 400 plus years. Shakespeare had an ability to capture what it is that makes us human. That is why the characters still resonate with us today. Shakespeare's plays contain multitudes. We have just scratched the surface today. This is just what I saw. Everyone will see something different every time they see or read the play. Each production has a different interpretation driving it. The director brings something, each actor brings something. You bring something. You can see the same play multiple times and notice something different each and every time. The same goes for when you read it. There is always something new to experience with Shakespeare. And that's why I hope you'll join me in my next series on Macbeth. Let me know your thoughts, questions, and observations in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss my next series. For more Shakespeare fun in the meantime, check out my blog at ripegoodscholar.com or my podcast, Breaking Bard. Links down below to that and all my other social media. See you next time, and remember, go wisely and go slowly. Those who rush, stumble, and fall.